class, kindly open your modules on page 7. We are now on sources of data. Okay, so we have discussed last time that data can be categorized as primary and secondary data. Okay, so let's first discuss about the primary data, or where can we get the primary data. Okay, so here are the primary sources. So the sources class provides a first-hand account of an event or maybe a time period, and these are considered to be authoritative. Okay, primary sources represent original thinking. Okay, it could be reports on discoveries or maybe events that in this way they share new information. Okay, often class these sources are created at the time of the events, um, or maybe these sources includes that this data can be created later. Okay, usually class, the first appearance of the original research is in this form. Okay, now like I said, primary sources are original. Okay, and as well as, like I said, first-hand siya. And examples of this class, primary sources are like diaries. When you write diary, right? Like for example, you're a teenage or even working. So every day you are writing on your diary whatever happens during the day, or maybe your special moments that you want to forget. So as you can see, you are the source itself. So if for example, after so many years, um, your diary has been found, okay, so that diary is a source, primary source, original source. Okay, aside from diaries, we have original documents, like for example the birth certificate. Why birth certificate is considered to be original? It's because that birth certificate was filled out by the parent itself. Okay, your parents during your birth. So your parents is the one who filled that out, that birth certificate. Okay, so the information written there is from the original source, which is the parents. Okay, so that's why they are considered to be original documents or primary source. Even the trial transcripts class are considered to be primary source. These biographies, autobiography, and manuscripts. And take note class that this data, primary data, can be taken, okay, when you conduct survey using a questionnaire. So if for example you mail a questionnaire to a certain person, so whenever that respondent send back to you the response, so the data or the information from there is coming from a primary source. Okay, or you can also take the information or the sources from a survey, or it could be from an experimentation. Also plus during the interview, okay, as you interview the person that you are talking to is considered to be the primary source. Or for example, you are listening to a speech, or if you are trying to analyze history. Okay, even class, the law, the legislation, the regulation, our constitution, they are considered to be primary sources. These government documents, the statistical data that they are presenting to us, the research reports. Okay, if you conduct research, the reports that you found out is considered to be primary source. Like for example, a journal. Okay, maybe a reporter, or maybe a writer writes a journal. So the information there, or the source there is, or that journal itself is considered to be a primary source. Even class, the newspaper, the one written in the editorial or the opinion page, that's considered to be primary source. So you can find it, or you can found usually class the primary source from maybe a library collection, or it could be since history. So usually sa library talaga siya. Okay, now how about for the secondary sources, secondary data? I'm sorry, kindly correct that, secondary sources. So secondary sources class, they offer analysis, and it could be an interpretation or a restatement. Take note, the term restatement of the primary source. Okay, so the information that you can get from the secondary sources are just somewhat restated, or somewhat already stated by others. They just said it again, something like that, or they just summarized it maybe, or they just analyzed or interpreted someone's information or idea. Okay, so it could be that this secondary source could be a generalization, it could be a synthesis, or maybe it is an interpretation, maybe a commentary. Okay, commentary or evaluation, in order to convince the reader of the argument that the creator have made. Okay, secondary sources class, they often attempt to describe, or let's say explain, a primary source. Okay, kasi they are just commenting, they are somewhat interpreting someone's information. Okay, so examples class, by the way, here. So like you said, secondary data are previously recorded data. Okay, it could be the research conducted by a person. So an example class of secondary data is this: financial statements. Okay, what else? Business periodicals, government reports. Okay, now aside from that class, we have the comments of maybe in a journal article. So if you've seen a comment taken from another primary source, that's considered as secondary. Or textbooks class. Okay, also the textbook, it's somewhat interpretation of a previously recorded data, right? Like for example, um, statistical book. Okay, so it could be that the author is interpreting the principle, maybe, excuse me, excuse me. Another secondary source class is dictionary. Dictionary, the encyclopedias, okay, or a book that interprets, or something that analyzes. There's a lot of books that like that, but the content are some interpretation or analysis of the principles that are recorded before. Dissertations class. Okay, when you take the doctorate, so what that that dissertation of someone, okay, could be a secondary source. What else? If someone criticizes a literature, or maybe an artwork or music, so that person, okay, or that article that criticizes is considered to be a secondary source.